Roger Burris to propose a retention agreement, a retainer agreement. And he has presented to Jared and to me a retainer agreement that is substantially similar to previous years. And I'll let Roger go ahead and describe what he has put in his proposed retainer agreement.
Yes, it's basically the same deal as we've had in the past, where for a fixed amount per year, I handle all the attendance at regular meetings and special meetings and kind of miscellaneous work that is usual and customary. And then, of course, any special projects or situations or litigation would be an additional charge based upon my hourly rates. So I've maintained the same fee structure as I have in the past. Made some minor changes to the agreement, but just to make it more clear and to make it suitable. But I've had a long history with the park board, and I'm certainly not planning to change anything significant at this point.
Yeah, the amount has not changed. It's very modest. I would say that, there aren't that many attorneys in town, and it's a small town, and we waive in advance conflicts of interest where Roger may be or he may have a client who's adverse to the town, not the Parks Board, but the town. So keep that in mind. Occasionally, somebody may be in a condemnation proceeding with the town, and Roger may represent that person. So again, we are the Board of Parks, and that waiver does not apply to clients that may have an interest adverse to the Parks Board. I get that. You described that correctly, Roger?
Yes. If I certainly would not take on a client or represent the Parks Department in a situation where I have another client who is directly adverse to the Parks Department. That would not be proper. So if anything like that comes up during the year, I will be sure to let you know.
Great. Thank you for your service in the coming year and for the past few years, Roger. Thank you. Okay, well, let's move on to the regular agenda. And
Tim, you didn't vote on my agreement.
Oh yeah. Oh shoot. All right. So I'll move to approve a retainer agreement with Burris and Cease and Roger Burris under terms substantially similar to past years and as described in this meeting by Roger. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
John Stair seconds. Is there any questions or discussion? If not, without objection, we'll go to the vote and start with Jill Pack. Yay or nay?
Yay.
John Stair?
Aye.
John Salvich?
Aye.
John Wollenberg?
Aye.
I'm also aye, so that motion to retain Roger is unanimously passed. All right, now we can move to the discussion and approval of the December 9th minutes of the Parks Board. Any questions, or is there a motion to approve or amend those minutes?
I had one minor correction. On the first page, halfway down where it mentions the Zion Aqua project, that would be a Zion Aqua. For those that are familiar with the Zionsville privately owned swimming facility, of which I was a member starting at age 5, so I'm very familiar with that. But it's a Zion Aqua.
Happy to make that edit.
Is there a motion, other questions or corrections, or is there a motion to approve as amended there with Roger's suggestion?
I'll move to approve as submitted with Roger's correction.
Member Pack has made the motion. A second.
Second.
John Wallenberg seconds. Discussion? If not, no objections, we'll move to a vote. Jill Pack,
Aye.
John Stair,
Aye.
John Salovich,
Aye.
John Wallenberg.
Aye.
I also vote aye, so the minutes as amended of December 9th are approved. At this point in our meeting, we ask that if there are any members of the public present in our Zoom meeting, that this is your chance and opportunity to make a public presentation. So is there anyone out there who would like to ask questions, make a presentation? This is your chance. All right, Jared, no one has raised their hand, so we will move on to our staff reports. And the first staff report is by Jared, our superintendent. Go ahead.
Happy New Year, Parks Board. Just a couple updates as we get rolling into this year. I hope you had an opportunity to look in the packet and see the surplus items that were listed. The town is having a surplus sale in the near future, and they've asked for us to identify surplus items. And as you can see, the majority of them are furniture, office furniture from the Nature Center. So as we make our move to the library, we won't need as much. So on top of that, there was also 2 snow blowers that aren't used regularly that were also put up on surplus. So if it is the board's blessing, we'll move ahead with putting those on surplus and adding a little revenue to our department.
Okay, Roger, do we need a motion on this? I know there's a value threshold.
Right. So if the total value of those items, if we're reasonably certain that the total value is less than $5,000, then those items can be sold without extensive advertising and so forth. My understanding is that they'll be part of a town run public auction type sale, either online or live auction, where those and other items will be sold. So it would be good to have a motion supporting Jared's determination that these items have a total value of less than $5,000.
Yeah, they certainly did not look to be very valuable. I don't know, the snow blowers are used and old, and yeah, even those would certainly be much less than $5,000. Okay, is there a motion to support the valuation of less than 5,000 and to grant Jared the discretion to dispose of the property?
I'll make that motion that we go with a valuation of less than 5,000 and see if we can sell that property.
I will second
I'll
that.
go ahead. John Wallenberg has seconded the motion. Any other questions? Discussion? All right. If there's no objection, we'll go ahead and move roll call on that vote or on that motion. Jill Pack,
Aye.
John Stair,
Aye.
John Salovich, you're muted, John. There was an I there. You got a sticky button or something. All right, John Wallenberg.
Aye.
I also vote aye. So the motion carries to support the valuation of less than $5,000 for the items in our packet and to let Jared sell those. All right. Go, all right, yeah, we're still on the superintendent's report. Keep
Yep.
going.
Two more quick updates. The library has reviewed the MOU for moving the nature center over, and they will have their meeting on the 21st where they should take a vote. All things go well, we could be looking at next month beginning that move over. So it's exciting. Another exciting opportunity, conversations with the Zion Aqua have continued, and we're reaching the point where we're seeing if a feasibility study is the next step. So the mayor's administrative team are working with an architect and Tricia to kind of develop those numbers, and we'll have more to present at the next Parks Board meeting. So just something to kind of give you a little prelude to. And that is all my updates at this time.
All right, would you like to, I know we have year-end staff reports as well, so we could, and I don't know if Dave and Mindy are present, but we could combine their staff reports with their year-end reports. Is that what you would like to do, Jared?
Yep, I think that's great.
Okay, but before we go there, let's go ahead and get our staff report from Roger Burris.
Okay, lots going on, like has been typical during the last year. So I think we finalized the dog park rules and documents for those desiring to use the new dog park. I reviewed those policies that I think are coming up later in the agenda tonight with Jared. Worked on the Overly Warman contract. One of the issues that came up there was how best to handle the builder's risk insurance. And I've talked to HIS constructors regarding that, and Tricia and the town's insurance agent. And I think we have a plan. Just need to get the final details ironed out on that. I also have documents for the contract for the Starkey Park stairs, which I have not had a chance to review. I have reviewed the Turkey Foot Bridge repair documents. Some questions on that Jared and I should discuss and follow up with the engineering firm. I also reviewed the Starkey Park Lair grant issue, which I think is also on the agenda for tonight later on. Continue to work on the property acquisitions, continue to make progress, but it's kind of slow lately, maybe partly due to the holidays, but I followed up on all those situations and done what I can to keep them moving. So that's it, unless there are any questions.
If there are no questions.
I have one quick question, and I guess we can talk to it when we get to claims. But maybe now, I don't know, whatever you think would be better, Roger. There's a line item there for legal work on the Henkeline property acquisition. Yes. Should we read that's moving forward, or that there've been some progress in that regard?
Well, that was that's a situation that started simple and then got extremely complicated. And then it ended up basically getting deferred at the request of the property owner, because the property owner decided they were not prepared to proceed at that time. I have continued to stay in touch with them. The other thing that happened during that process was the situation with the property nearby owned by the neighbors, where we had a first right of refusal, so that kind of got combined with that situation. So I've kept all the avenues that we have open and kept Tim up to date on those, and the mayor. So the ball's in their court. We stand ready and willing to do what we can do financially and legally. So the plan at this point is just to stay in touch, but I was asked to, you know, bill things that I could bill for last year in order to get them under, you know, within the budget for last year. So that was one where it's kind of uncertain at this point. I mean, hopefully everything's, you know, we've still got a lot of work there that hopefully will come to fruition. So yeah, I went ahead and billed for what I had done last year.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
All right, then let's move on to the staff reports. The Director of Maintenance Services and Director of Recreation Services, and maybe golf course annual report. I'm not sure what you've got planned for us here, but Jared, I'll turn it over to you for those.
Yep, there we go. Just wanted to start off by saying, you know, Zionsville is really blessed and fortunate to have such an incredible team. Dave with maintenance has led a great team, keeping up with levels of service as this year has presented its challenges, and the same can be said for Mindy and Mike as well. And with no further ado, I'll let Dave take it away and kind of talk about his year in review.
All right, can you guys hear me? Jared? Thank you very much for that. I wanted to kind of talk about what we did this year as a team from a maintenance standpoint. As you know, 2020 and COVID and everything that came about was not budgeted for. And our parks increased about 400% as far as users went. So I'm very proud of my maintenance staff and the ability to rise up and meet the increased maintenance and operation demands that we experience. And I know I've gotten a lot of feedback from some of the board members that, and some of the community members that, you know, they were seeing good things happen, and it makes me very proud of the staff and what they were able to do. So as a recap, I'll try to keep this brief. It's hard to put a whole year into a couple minutes, but as far as improvements, when we've got some great wins on the rail trail. Any of you guys that have walked down the rail trail as of late over the last month have noticed some of the milling sections that we did, where we took some of those high points out over by Spring Knoll near 875. That was a big point of contention and potentially a trip hazard. I think that some of the members had mentioned that there's a place that they would kind of catch their toe every once in a while, and bike riders as well. President Cassidy knows that when you ride over those spots, it was pretty bad. So we were able to work, collaborate with the street department and do some things with some of their machines that we haven't actually tried before, and the street department hadn't either. So it ended up working out very well, and we're happy to make that a bit safer until we can get to the point to where we can replace that area. Park staff also replaced all the light fixtures except for the Mulberry Fields field lights with LED fixtures across all parks, which was I think a very smart move. We've been very mindful of our energy usage throughout the parks, and Jared's been very helpful with that as far as kind of making that a priority. So our team understands that you know, usage is or reducing our footprint is very important. As you may recall, earlier in the year, it was a bit of a struggle. It took 6 months to get someone to come in and create a relationship with gravestone groomers, but we were able to get Eagle Village Cemetery headstones all taken care of, which there were a lot of broken headstones and state of disrepair for quite a few of the headstones. This was a pretty big undertaking. It took about a week, worked very closely with and developed a good relationship so that in the future we can work with them on some of our other grave sites that we have. We've got Mulberry as well. Let's see, and improvements, Mulberry Fields. As you may remember, the parking lot looked and was in a state of disrepair. This year, we were able to work with contractors and coordinate repainting, resealing the entire parking lot, which made a huge impact, I think, visually, and lengthened the life of the parking lot itself. Got a lot of great comments on that. That came right around the same time as working on the skate park as well, with Grindline and coordinating that. That has been a big improvement, and we continue to see increased numbers out there with a lot of positive feedback. So we're happy to have been part of that. Mulberry Fields this year also got what I'll call a makeover. We had a lot of improvements that we wanted to kind of bring into the fray. New benches, 4 new split benches up by the drinking fountains, touch-free faucets with COVID in mind, touch-free hand dryers, steel doors that were rusting at the bottoms have all been replaced, fans to increase ventilation to prevent some of the problems of the past from happening in the future. We replaced 8 of the picnic tables that were out there in poor condition with recycled material tables. We also put out 148 yards of playground mulch to the playground, both there and at Heritage Trail Park, which has increased the safety and longevity of those parks and give it a nice fresh look. If you've been out there at all, it looks really sharp. Park staff removed over 180 truck reloads. And this sounds like I'm making it up, but Jared and I were out in the field one day and kind of taking a look at this. So most recently we had invasive species pulled off the rail trail by one of our contractors. And what they did is they cut everything, but they left it. It was part of the deal where we felt that we could handle this part of it so we could reduce some of our costs. So we did the removal and they did the cutting. 180 F-250 truckloads over a 2-week period were taken out of the rail trail and ground up. This was almost everything we could do to keep up with it, quite frankly, but it has been a very rewarding piece, because if you've been out there and you kind of looked at it before, it is so much better, and we have such a better handle on it so that we can go forward and really look to kind of take some of this maintenance and care in-house a little more than relying on some of our contractors. So we implemented a new reporting system which tracks fuel usage last year by person and piece of equipment. And as a result, we found that we had a large, just over a 25% reduction in fuel consumption. I'm very proud of that. I think that, you know, with a little bit of awareness and a little bit of monitoring and understanding our fuel usage in general, it's something that we can really put some dollar figures to and some responsibility to. So that was a nice win for us. The team had removed 259 large dead trees from our pathways and corridors. These are the large trees that fall down in windstorms. These are just the ones I reported. I don't know how many other ones they might have taken out on their own. That's a lot of work. We, you know, if you've been out during or after a windstorm or any kind of a big rainfall, it's just, there's a lot of dead ash trees out there, and we were able to do those all in-house. And I'm very happy that we had no injuries during any of that as well. So additions to our parks department added 3 new ADA portable toilets to the park system. I think that is something that has been a big win and probably overdue for the park system. Hopefully in the future, we can put something together in a more permanent fashion. But I think what we have right now is definitely a plus up from the situation that we had previously. Obviously, we have 2 new playgrounds that came in last year that we've been working on and monitoring to keep up, that we're proud of, in Elm Street Green and the Lions Park. We put 3 new pickleball courts in, which there was a lot of requests for, and hopefully here next year we can have something a little more permanent put in as far as pickleball courts go. But I know our users have reached out to me personally and really thanked us for that, which is very rewarding to see people out there using some of the courts, and even the basketball court over in Heritage Trail Park, which doesn't often get used for basketball, is now an official pickleball court. So we have a new Heritage Trail drinking fountain, new cornholes over at Heritage Trail Park. There's a dog park over at Heritage Trail Park. So from a maintenance standpoint, you know, some of this stuff in this year in 2020 or the previous year in 2020 was a lot more than maintenance for the team. There's a lot of building, there was a lot of adding, there was a lot of operations and additions to things. So electrical was something that we didn't have in Heritage Trail. We were able to coordinate that. The fence you guys have seen, if you've been out there, we have security cameras, which we have access to, which are wonderful. I believe that we've seen, in general, we've seen a lot less trash laying around, a lot less loitering going on, as I've been monitoring those cameras as well. So we've got some good benefits going from that. Shade sail foundations and architecture is in. We have the shades themselves set aside. We're going to put them out when the weather breaks a little bit better. They're blue, kind of sky blue, and there's 3 of them. They will add a very nice a bit of kind of dimension out there and a place to kind of get out of that Heritage Trail Park sun, because there's not a lot of trees that are mature enough out there. So we have the entrance technology is all set up. Jared, myself, my team all have our badges that work on that. So we don't need fobs. We just use our RFID badges, which is wonderful. We look forward to that opening up and being able to kind of get in there and take care of all the situations that need to be done with ease. So, and that system is all set up on a wireless account system. So we don't need to be hardwired in to do that. Equipment capabilities, we got a new front load tractor, which is awesome. Thank you to the board. We've got about 65 hours on it so far, and it's working out great. It's really saved a lot of man hours. We got a new 0-turn mower, which makes 2. That was something that we did this year. A new power washer, a mobile wash tank for the cleaning capabilities, and that allows us to kind of clean up our some of the graffiti and things without using chemicals. So we can take that right out onto the site and clean up things, which is something that we're really trying to avoid, is using harsh chemicals, which is generally what it takes to take spray paint off of hard surfaces. Safety wise, park staff installed fire extinguishers in all the park's maintenance vehicles last year. Mandatory first aid kits for all the maintenance fleet. We added fire extinguishers in the golf course in 7 locations, in the fueling station, added emergency flashing lights to all of our vehicles for visibility and safety. And proud to say that last year, 0 days lost to injury on the staff. And that's what I got for 2020.
Hey, Dave, a couple of things. One, you started the year woefully understaffed. So you've also, you know, your people are important, and you've got a couple of new people that you've brought on board and got up to speed over the course of the year. And you mentioned the COVID. You've had a whole year you've been operating under, and there's a lot of extra work with COVID, or at least initially, and I presume still. What's your forecast for 2020? You know, if you forecast that COVID eases up summertime, Q2, Q3, is it going to impact what you guys do very much?
I mean, I'm a student of, you know, Dr. Fauci and other people that are much wiser than I on the subject, but in kind of taking a look at it, I don't know that we're going to see a lot of change in 2021 as far as like real differences. I think we're still going to be packed in our parks personally. I think that we will, you know, continue. We had a great run at it in 2020 to kind of understand where we need to spend our time, but I'm anticipating a very similar year to 2020, except for that I've got a team that's more mature and up to speed, if that answers your question.
Yeah, that helps. But just thanks. I hear so many compliments from people I run into in the park. So, and the pros consulting, which we're going to come to, I would, you know, how, and I don't know what, I don't think it was being negative, but maintenance of our parks was always a huge, the populace recognized that as a huge, important piece of what we do.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you, board.
Thank you, Dave.
Yeah.
Not only keeping up with increased demand, but also creating new efficiencies and preventative prescriptions. So really a hand to Dave for that. Moving on, we'll move on to Mindy, who is now our Director of Recreation Services. Mindy kind of wore a lot of hats prior to this role. She was basically fulfilling the majority of the job description that we created for the new position. So it only made sense to promote within and refine that position to be more appropriate moving forward. So the naturalist position will be sticking to the nature center moving forward a little bit better. But Mindy, I'll let you take it away.
Sure. Thanks, guys. Good evening, board. It's nice to see you guys again. So yeah, 2020, crazy for all of us, not just maintenance side, but also on the programming side. So I guess the big thing to throw in there for our programming and for the nature center is just adaptability, and that's kind of what we had to really focus on. So I will say mine will be a little shorter because we don't have as many accomplishments as Dave was able to get through with the maintenance guys. A lot of that had to do with the pandemic and the fact that the nature center itself was closed, or we had limited hours that we were open for about 8 months out of that year. So that made a big impact. And the other one was, of course, I took a step away from the nature center as interim superintendent. And so that did affect a lot of the day-to-day that went on. But we still, even though COVID had some down parts to the nature center, we had a lot of really good accomplishments. And we kind of ended, 2020 with a pretty good positive high note. So we'll get into that one. The big one is, of course, our, overall our attendance was much less last year than in the past. So on 2019, we were just shy of 12,000 in walk-ins as well as program attendance. This year we saw about 3,700. Again, a lot of that is just because we weren't able to do a lot of the programming that we were going to do. And we also weren't just open for people to come in. Now, as far as our programs go, that's where we get into the adaptability, because while we couldn't have people coming to in-person programming, we went the route of virtual. So we still were able to pull in about 188 programs, even in the face of the pandemic. A lot of those programs, we adapted that they were outside only. We also did a lot of, with myself and Rachel Felling, our part-time naturalist, did a lot of Facebook Live programs. So we closed out 2020 with 64 Facebook Lives. So if you haven't seen them all and you are on Facebook, you can go to the Zion Nature Center Facebook page and they're all on there. We saved them all. So, if you're this weekend's looking like it's going to be a little iffy with the weather, you can grab yourself a cocoa or coffee and sit there and catch up on some nature history. So the other nice one is, like I said, we adapted to what we were faced with. And when the schools rolled around and said that they were not going to allow any inside speakers, we looked at, and thankfully, we approached the board and you unanimously approved us allowing us to go virtual. So we were able to do virtual school programs as well as Discovery Schoolyard programs where we met the kids outside in their schoolyard. So those we started about midway through September, and just in that 3 final months of 2020, we were able to do 23 programs for the schools, either virtually or actually meeting them outside in their outdoor classrooms or in their playground areas. And those are actually still continuing. I know we've got, I think, 3 more set up for January already this year. So definitely something that they're looking forward to. And again, like I said, we're going to continue to adapt. We're happy that we were able to put together some COVID regulations and kind of recommendations for not just the nature center being open, but also for our camps. And so that allowed us to still hold summer camps right in the middle of the pandemic and hold them very successfully. We had lower attendance than we usually did, but we still saw 170 or 107 kids. And, you know, even though our revenue for the nature center was down significantly, really all of our big expenses, if you think about camp with all of our supplies and even all the staff, and it, you know, some of those regulations meant more staff so more staff in smaller groups, but we were still able to come in, you know, in the green. That we really, you know, we were really careful with the budget that we did have, even though we faced a pretty big deficit in what we brought in for last year. And then just a few other fun things that happened kind of in the middle of the pandemic is that we were able to really reach out and to form some awesome partnerships. So one, working with Jill with the greenhouse gas inventory and the climate action plan. And we were able to see that through to, that plan was presented to the town council in December. Also working with the consultants with Pros Consulting on the program plan. So you talked about increase in attendance in our parks last year. So I guess now my job is to see that now those people are in our parks, how do we make sure that after the pandemic, they stay coming to our parks? So I think that's where that programming starts to reach in there, so that once we've got them in there, we try and keep them hooked so they keep coming back for more for our Zionsville parks. And then working with the library. So not only working at moving the nature center here in 2021, but also forming those partnerships. So we started with kind of a trial on our story walk at Elm Street Green. And so that is also something that is going to become a permanent addition to the park. And I think a very successful addition, not just for the library, but also an opportunity for us to program off of those storyboards that will be up there. And like I said, we ended on kind of a high note. So we were able to hold one of our kind of more popular programs in December, which is our New Year's Eve. But we did it virtually. So it was kind of fun to see all the families all at once. We were able to have more families than we normally would have in the nature center, and got to see them all kind of in their own little celebrations at their home as we kind of rang in the new year. Had little, everyone had their own little things going on, but we all shared. We also did, since we normally would do a winter camp during break, and we couldn't do that because we decided not to be doing in-person programming in December. We actually did a camp kit. So whereas we would normally have 20 camp kids coming for one day at the nature center, we actually sold 50 kits. So we had 50 kids and we had 4 sessions that Rachel led through the 2 weeks of break. With activities for the kids to do that they could do at home. We had all the supplies for them. And then if they weren't able to watch the Zoom sessions live, we recorded those. So we had a lot of families that where mom and dad might have worked. They would, look at them later on as a family, and we got really good feedback. So we actually are doing another kit for Martin Luther King weekend. So those kits are getting picked up on Friday. So not 50, we're about 30 right now, but that's okay. It's a shorter weekend versus the 2 weeks. So, and we also did our first ever fort building challenge. So virtually. So if you haven't seen that one, voting for our forts ends tomorrow. So again, go on Facebook if you're on social media and check out the different forts that the families and kids submitted. And, the fort that wins, we've got some prizes to get to them for participating. So just another way to kind of reach our community when we can't see them in person as much as we'd like to. So, but happy to answer any other questions you have.
Thanks. I was not, until I got the report, I wasn't aware of the Facebook Live program. So that's a fantastic list of, yeah, that's something that I'll immediately get onto. I'm always amazed at how many programs there really are. 140 programs in a down year. That's just amazing. And Mindy, thanks for your successful tenure as interim superintendent and your promotion recently to the director of recreation services. So well deserved. And again, thanks for helping us through a crazy COVID topsy-turvy year. So
Thanks for bearing with me, and it was a pleasure.
Thank you, Mindy. Yeah, and just to reiterate, Mindy had two hands on two car wheels this year and was able to navigate both. So I think that deserves an extra kudos throughout all the crazy of this year to have as successful of a year as she did. So thank you, Mindy. I really appreciate all the onboarding and catching me up as well. And next, we'll move on to our full-time golf course manager, Mike Wall. Mike has done an incredible job out there. He's taught me a lot about the sport of golf and kind of what goes into running a course. And hopefully I've taught him a thing or two. Not much though, but I look forward to working with him. He's open to collaborations, and I'll let him take it away after I promote him.
Hello. Let's see. Hi. Great to be here tonight. I'm gonna share my screen as I've got a presentation. I think maybe not. So the golf course this year was very successful. We didn't really open until May 22nd because of COVID implications, but we maintained the course. Prior to that, we had to still do mowing, agronomics prior to that, so that it was ready. Tee times, once we did open, were 15-minute intervals, where in previous years we did 10-minute intervals, which is 33% less. As we went through the season, even through July, only one golfer was permitted on the golf carts. So we still had, some hardships throughout the season. But the facts were, at the beginning of the season, there were $135,000 in the fund, but as of the end of the season, it ended up at over $300,000, an increase of $165,000. Our total revenue was $351,000, which was an increase of $112,000 or 47%, which was a 47% increase from 29. So overall, a great year. 16,000, almost 17,000 rounds, 22% from 2019. So those numbers throughout the industry were exponentially higher. I can't say enough for what the staff did. Overall, in every category, we were higher. 58% additional greens fees, season passes. We are, $11,000 more, carts 30,000. Overall 112,000. A typical year, every month we were higher. In some cases we were almost double. Like for example, September, a typical September, we typically did 27,000. This year we did 53,000. So everything that we did this year was higher. The difference was $125,000 more. So the staff, everything that they did this year, inside and outside, showed, and our clientele appreciated everything we did. Tea time reservations, like I said, almost 17,000 rounds played this year. Last year it was approximately 13,000 for the entire year. 75% of total tea times were reserved. The no-show rate, 6.8%. With our new tea time reservation portal, 39% of those were booked online, and a combination of the transactions of paid on the line was 12.3%. So the 4-up system that we purchased at the beginning of the system and the technology that was used was just so advantageous for our operation. Can't tell you how much it was utilized. The breakdown of rounds throughout this year, still the regular daily fee was the most rounds, almost 10,000, followed by juniors and seniors. But we could, do a more extensive breakdown than in the past. Some of the highlights from the maintenance this year, we incorporated the tall fescue, which defined the course, absorbed the water when we had some of the rain this year. We did a lot of tree work throughout the course this year, around the putting green, for example. Holes 1, we took some dead trees out. 9, 3. We also removed some invasive honeysuckle vines throughout the course. Water management. Pete Proust was continuously working the pumps so that we could get carts back on the golf course and play like on hole 4, 5, 9. This year we did deep core aerification of the greens, which will ultimately develop root growth, have smoother greens. We actually aerified tees for the first time in over 15 years at the golf course, which tees were in great shape in the fall. We planted flowers and native grasses up near the green, or up near the practice green, near the clubhouse. We maintain the golf course equipment much more efficiently on a bi-weekly basis. The equipment was, the reels were sharpened and maintained. Other miscellaneous projects were pardon me here. Just getting back into the swing of things. The public works worked with us, and we removed dangerous steps on hole 8. And then the removal of rotten beams throughout the golf course, and we reseeded areas. So just the golf course in general is in the best condition ever in 2020. The golf course operations, the 4-up system this year was tremendous. We were able to capture all the transactions much more effectively. We were able to develop marketing campaigns. We were able to have enhanced reports for the town. The change in culture to focus on a more of a customer experience. The staff knew the customers. They were able to explain the whole COVID experience to them, why we were implementing policies and procedures. Our product offering was enhanced, especially, dare I say, in the beer, which increased our sales. We did over $20,000 in concessions this year. Additionally, we offered the Zionsville Junior League in the fall. We had originally attempted to get 36 juniors. We did get 36 juniors, but over 72 people or juniors signed up, and we just had to cut it off at 36. So we will do that junior program again next fall. Some of the updates that we did, we repainted the inside of the clubhouse. We added the counter. Vendors offered us coolers that there again gave a better appearance for the concessions, which ultimately increased sales. So there was just a better operations for the customer. New for 2021, there will be a new cart fleet. The old carts were taken away November 15th. We've got a 5-year lease contract for 30 new carts and 2 utility vehicles. The maintenance will be covered under this fleet. And it will be a 30 to 40 mile per gallon with the new fleet. This is 5 to 6 more times efficient than the previous fleet, so it'll save on gas. We're going to change the harrows for our agronomics. They've come out and done a soil sample to further enhance the quality of the turf. And then the Parks Board did approve $100,000 for the repair of cart paths. The initial focus will be holes 8 and 9 to increase the safety for golfers. My estimation, this could be a 3-phase approach to complete all repairs. And tomorrow, we'll be working with the Lance group on the drainage issues for the course, so that we're just not working on the cart paths and then it's a moot point. So drainage will be resolved so that cart paths and drainage will be worked in concert. So yeah, overall, it was a great year at the golf course. It just wasn't a COVID issue. Lots of things were changed. There's a lot of positive energy, and I think 2021 should just be as strong. So, yeah.
Well, great. Thanks, Mike. Everything looks so nice. I love the fescue grass out there, especially, but also congratulations on assuming the new full-time golf course manager position. Congratulations on that. And yeah, we welcome you to the new, to the world of full-time. Yeah, you were putting in full-time anyway. So thanks for all your efforts this past year. COVID, what's the, we were up 46%. How's that compare with other nearby courses, and what do you and the industry predict for the coming season?
Yeah, I mean, the industry average was about 28%. So we were above average. Yeah, I think, obviously not everyone's going to be vaccinated until June, July. So I think it will still continue. well into 2021. I just don't.
You just wonder what the new baseline will be. I think there will be a new baseline, but you want, let's say 2019 was our old baseline.
Right.
What's it going to be
Yeah.
like in the future? How, do we just have a new generation of golfers because they took the time to learn this coming year? And then what does that mean for our course and what we need to do?
Well, the other thing is the way of the world is a 9-hole course. Because people don't have time 4 hours to play 18-hole courses. And the PGA of America and the USGA have really taken the initiative to target 9-hole courses. So the fact that we are that 9-hole course really is the way of the future. And the PGA of America and the USGA did take it upon themselves to really, okay, let's just not look at this as a one-time thing. They really have taken initiatives to take advantage of this opportunity and not just say, okay, this is going to be, a one and done thing. They're investing on this opportunity and not just saying, there is an investment in this future. So, I mean, I don't think it's going to be one and done. They really are capitalizing on this opportunity, through initiatives that they've got going on.
Well, great. Congratulations on a record year. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hey, Mike,
Yes.
question. Do you think the Holiday Farms new golf course will have any impact on our operations?
I really don't. I think really we'll have the top golfs will have a bigger impact on us if we can capitalize on getting 5% of the people that go from a top golf to us. We're going to gain more people from coming from a top golf than we're going to lose going from us to Holiday Farms.
Is there a nearby Top Golf planned?
Well, there's a Top Golf in Fishers already, and then there's another Top Golf like facility that's going to be built down near Lucas Oil Stadium or in the near future. So the people that are going to Top Golf, if we can get 5% from them coming to our facility, that's better than the people going from our then we're going to lose going to Holiday Farms. Holiday Farms already has their membership, and there's a few people that are that I know that have been playing down at Zionsville that are going to be members, but the more people that we're going to get from Top Golf coming to us are going to far outweigh. So I'm not really, and I mean, we've got people that play down at Zionsville that are members at Crooked Stick. So Zionsville is a great, because, and those people that play at Crooked Stick that play at Zionsville, like I said, they can go over to Zionsville and play golf in an hour and a half and not spend those 4 hours plus and then have to go spend another hour in the bar or having dinner and spending 6-7 hours total. They can just breeze through Zionsville and go home, and that's more enjoyable than, I mean, it's not, I'm not saying it's more enjoyable, but just a different alternative at Zionsville. So it just, I'm not really too, it's not that I'm not concerned. It's just, we have this different alternative that that's unique, and that we can capitalize on, that that Holiday Farms can't present to them, let alone it's $15,000 just to walk in the door at Holiday Farms, not $15.
Great point. Yeah, we're not really worried at all. I think it's going to be another great year. COVID's pushed people outside, and Mike's program was there to welcome them with open arms. And And I don't know if he's paying people, but every time I show up there, there's nothing but, gratitude and kudos to the staff. So
Well,
that
and
customer experience really is going to bring people back.
well, in the Lilies of the world, in the Roches of the world, and a lot of these companies still are not going back to, they're still working remote at least until June or July as of right now. So, I mean, that's as of right now. So, they're going to be playing hooky for quite a while, at least through June or July.
Thank you, Mike.
Yep, you're welcome.
Okay, anything more on year-end staff reports, Jared? Is that the last one?
Yep, I think we're good there.
All right, then let's move on and get a debriefing from you and John Stair and maybe Austin Hochstetter, or I'm not sure who else might be here from Pros, but the Pros consultants have issued a sort of a tentative final report. So let's get a report on what that looks like.
Absolutely. So yeah, as you know, Pros Consulting has been working with the department throughout the year to gather statistically valid information and really put together what programs we should be offering our community to meet the needs and wants of our community. So I'll let John further that message and then hand it off to the Pros Consulting team.
Thank you, Jared. Yeah, I just want to say that these guys since the beginning of the year have been very methodical. They've been very transparent along the way, both in how they gathered the data and how they've interpreted it. And a quick note before Austin begins presenting the findings here. I just want to say that Mindy has really been the rock star in this whole process. That, when we started, we still had our previous superintendent. So when he left, not only was Mindy acting as a superintendent, but she jumped into this project with both feet and supplied information to keep it going, and was involved in the twice monthly Zoom meetings that we've had, and really helped to codify the avalanche of data coming in. So, and again, while acting as superintendent during most of the year. So Mindy has definitely been a superstar, and I think that Austin and Nicole would certainly agree with that as they go through here and present the information we have. So Mindy, if you don't have anything else to say, I will let Austin go ahead and get started.
All right.
Good. Thanks.
Okay, I see Mindy playing. No
I'm gonna be
worries.
quiet.
All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. You should all see a PowerPoint right now. And then I'm fixing all my cameras here. I have two screens, so it's not that I'm gonna ignore you, but I'm gonna be facing that way a little bit. So I apologize in advance. But my name's Austin Hostetler, and I'm here with Nicole. We are of Pros Consulting out of Indianapolis, so just hop, skip, and a jump away from you all. And we worked on the program plan the last year, and I can't echo enough what John was saying there about the staff and John himself. Kudos for and Wayne, who I don't believe is on the call tonight, but for really leading the effort from on your all's behalf. It's been a truly good process to work with you all, and so I'm happy to spend just a couple minutes here and run through some slides with you all. There's a longer report that I believe John passed around to you all probably just this past week, so I'm not going to. I could very easily sit here for like an hour and talk through the results, but instead I'm going to stay here for about 5 minutes and talk through just some things to orient you to the report. And so that's the intent of what we're doing in this presentation. And then I'll take any questions you have, either based on anything that we said tonight and or anything you've read in the report thus far. All right. So purpose, process, orient you to some of the key data sources that we developed over the course of this plan, and then just highlight some of those key recommendations. And then of course, it's followed up with a little Q&A from you all if you have any. So first things first, the reason why we did the plan, we want to make sure we clearly define programming process that engages community. So we wanted to define the strategy for programming, engage the community. We want to talk to strategy, services, and direction, make sure things are financially sustainable, and identify the needs of the residents of Zionsville. So there's a lot put into that paragraph. So you can see that these are kind of our guiding principles in terms of the planning team that we want to make sure that we hit throughout the course of this planning process. So what we did was we approached this plan basically by looking at 3 questions. Where are we today? Where are we going tomorrow? And how do we get there? It's 3 basic questions, but everything that's in black underneath those are basically technical reports. And so the bulk of this presentation is basically indicating to you all that there's a final report, but there's also technical reports that are all part of that. So we did a system tour, we did a strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats analysis, we benchmarked against other agencies, completed a program assessment, did a deep dive in the public engagement, and analyzed demographic and recreation trends, and then prioritized that and provided key recommendations at the end of it. So what are these key data sources? So first is demographic and trends analysis. There's a separate report, but it's also part of the program plan itself. And it's also in the appendix there that you'll see as well, that we analyze the boundaries by urban and rural distinction because the town is growing. And so we know that we wanted to take a little bit of a look at more of the urban core versus the rural core. And so in that analysis, you'll see a lot about population projections, income, race, household composition, national, regional, and local recreation trends. And just what I put up here on the screen so you can see is there is a difference between urban on the left side, rural on the right side, and these are different populations by age segments. You could see that the rural sections are quote unquote a little bit younger in terms of their composition, but you can see that there's an aging trend that's going to be projected to happen over the next 5, 10, 15 years anyway. So the reason why we wanted to point this out to you all is look at the demographic and trends report. So that way you can get a little bit of a sense of what, if history remains true, what does it look like moving forward in terms of who are we actually serving with our programs and services. We also did a benchmark analysis. So we looked at Brownsburg, Indiana, Highland, Indiana, Oakland Township, Michigan, Deerfield Township in Ohio, Orange Township in Ohio, and then Preservation Parks of Delaware County in Ohio. And we asked them to complete a questionnaire that looked at everything from park acres, trail miles, staffing, budgets, marketing, and program participation. And these are just 2 example charts that are over here on the left-hand side. But essentially, we looked at where does the town of Zionsville fall in line with these benchmarks? And then if it's applicable, what does the national average show for that particular metric? So in that top chart, this is looking at FTE or full-time equivalents per 10,000 residents. So it's looking at a staffing level. You can see that based on these agencies that Zionsville is kind of right there, kind of at the middle, right below the middle at 4.2 FTE per 10,000. But you can see the national average for residents in your population jurisdictions about 9 FTE per 10,000. So you can kind of get a little snapshot in time about where you stand versus others. And it should be noted that these agencies were selected based on their kind of programmatic functions. And so some of them have really been gearing up their recreation and program services over the last couple of years. So we wanted to use them as a good kind of a test because they're kind of along the same lines as your department in terms of moving into programs and services. And also they're close to kind of an urban core, which like Indianapolis is for you all. Public engagement documents. So we did interviews and focus groups. And then we also did public meetings, so kind of user intercept meetings in the parks. So you'll see a lot of information that was gleaned based on that type of user input. And then John mentioned this, we did do a statistically valid community survey that garnered over 850 responses. And so it was very highly accurate. And we even produced metrics such as that chart on the right, which you don't have to try to read this on the screen, but basically, what is unmet need in your community and how important are these different activities to your community? So it actually gives you some statistical validity to outdoor events, fitness and wellness, cultural performances, outdoor recreation, outdoor water recreation, aquatics, enrichment programs being these kind of top echelon desires or wants and needs of your community. But then we also matched that survey with a general online survey so everybody could self-select into it. We received over 500 responses. And then you'll see in the actual program plan that we actually did a comparison like that chart on the bottom here that actually shows where the congruence or the disconnect between general online self-selected responses versus statistically valid. In most cases, in the example here on the screen, the top 5 in a particular question might be a little jumbled around in terms of the order, but the gist of it is in a particular question, both surveys might have the same top 4 out of top 5 responses. So you see some congruence there. So very interesting information to go through when you're looking at the report. And again, there's a separate ETC survey report that did the statistically valid survey. We also did a deep dive into the program assessment, and we looked at existing core program areas that are listed there on the screen. And we provide detailed analyses based on age segmentation, program lifecycle, classification. So is it like a public good? Is it a private good type of offering, cost of service, pricing strategies, and program strategies, best practices. That's really a foundational document that goes into the program plan, because that is kind of your best practice repository of information, so to speak. So it's a deep dive analysis based on the program services you already offer, but then we provide a lot of guidance and structure about how to actually move into programming a little bit more for your system. So the program assessment is very much a key data source that you want to pay attention to. And then lastly, where we took all this information and months of work, we boil it down to key recommendations that we distilled here on the screen. And there's more found in the program plan, but we just want to highlight a couple here. So move towards adding outdoor recreation and enrichment programs into the system. So the community was clear on adding more outdoor recreation-based programs into the system, but also when we say enrichment, you can think of that as kind of traditional parks and recreation services. So like arts, culture, like cooking, chess, game, like things that are just more known to be more of a common parks and recreation function. Your community is kind of highlighting the need to kind of see that from you all. Use age segments in program planning. So looking at developing marketing plans and focusing on active adults, because as I mentioned just a few minutes ago, population is aging. So paying attention to how we activate older adults. Integrate more performance standards with program planning, delivery, and evaluation. Again, you'll see that all in the report and laid out there and structured. We did hear loud and clear from the community that they want to see expanded programming times and locations, which will result in the need for hiring additional program staff. And then it also has implications for facilities, especially for trails and pathways, connections, and indoor recreation space, because programs and experiences drive facility design. And out of our entire process, besides the increased need for operational support from staff, it really shows the community would like to see more connections and highlighting more about your trail system that's already really, really good. And then the need for actual indoor recreation space, potentially with some aquatics there. But I know Jared mentioned that earlier in this meeting, some partnerships going on right now too in the aquatics realm, but especially looking at indoor recreation space. So that's our fast approach here to try to condense a longer document into a couple minutes. So hopefully it's not too vague for you all, but hopefully if you have questions, by all means, I'll stop sharing my screen here, and then feel free to ask myself or Nicole.
Well, I mean, that's a lot to take on, but fantastic opportunities as well that are obvious. One thing, when I read the report, I saw the conundrum about marketing and communication, where everything's in flux here. We've lost our local community paper, and social media is. It was interesting to see. I think the random surveyors all read the paper, and the ones who volunteered to take the survey all are on Facebook. They're all on social media. So yep. Is there any advice on that? I mean, I'm sure Mindy's going to have a challenge
yes.
on that. Are you given any key recommendations on how to go forward or how to solve that conundrum?
Yes. So the advice, first and foremost, is understanding the data sets. So the statistically valid is representing the general John Q. public, Jane Doe within your system. So we've even discussed that a further analysis needs to happen when it comes to the newspaper use, because there is some other periodicals within the area that might still be, just to the general resident, informative for the goings on of the town of Zionsville in general. But then the self-selected survey is typically a lot more users. So that gives a little bit more insight into those that are already users of the system. How do you kind of reach that base? So that's why it goes back to the marketing plan and identifying those particular target audiences probably actually have different messaging methods. And so that's kind of the next step for them, is to actually explore what that newspaper really means when it comes to the general town of Zionsville resident. What else?
Well, let me just add something here, Austin, and you might want to speak to this, that, these aren't just cookie cutter recommendations. I mean, you came into this with a clean slate and really considered what Zionsville was telling you about, what their programming desires are.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you'll see that in the report is it's very comprehensive in terms of the angles that we took to gather community input. So we met at the farmers market and caught users there that, yes, are users of town and Zionsville services, but not necessarily maybe the parks and recreation. And so that was comforting. We also held focus groups with potential partners and those users, non-users, local HOAs and residents. And then we also did statistically valid surveying, and then we did online surveying, and then just Nicole and myself in our professional opinion and looking at other organizations. That's how we kind of distilled all this down into this into the information that's presented in the plan. That it very much is, your community has said that we have unmet needs for more outdoor recreation. They see your system as a great backbone, but to Mindy's point, I think when she was talking about her year in review or annual report, is now how do we activate those people? How do we get them there? How do we they're there, so how do we keep them there, and how do we activate that? And I see that with a lot of other systems that have really good parks as a backbone, but maybe haven't focused a lot on the programmatic aspect of it, is how do you actually activate the spaces you already have through programmed experiences and or self-directed experiences that translate into programmed experiences. And so you're kind of at that cusp right there of those decision points. And so hopefully this program plan will provide a little bit of insight into the type of activities and experiences that your community really desires to see out of your system.
So I have you say outdoor recreation program, that's such a wide range. I mean, you think they're asking us to create more space, or is it they want us to teach them?
Sure.
Or a combination of both? Sure.
It's probably more likely a combination of both. And when we asked for outdoor recreation, we actually provided in the survey instrument some examples. So when it came to outdoor recreation, we actually talked about hiking, cycling, and mountain biking. So in those particular examples, it's alluding a little bit more to the types of spaces that you're providing. But you'll also see in the public engagement that there is a lot of talk about outdoor water recreation, so kayaking, paddleboarding, etc. So again, it's probably a little bit more towards providing the spaces, but a lot of systems are moving towards mixing fitness with water recreation. So doing your stand-up paddleboard yoga classes and things like that. So it's probably a little bit of both, but you could also, since you have the system, it's starting to activate them through maybe more self-directed experiences too, to get people to kind of like at their own free time or leisure get into the program. So you'll see that a little bit more when you look at the actual survey instrument. There's examples of what activities we actually put next to each one of those categories.
That category also would cover special events.
Anything else? Okay.
Great. All right. Thank you, Austin. Thank you, Nicole. Thank you, John, Mindy, all of you who helped shepherd this through the year. This is an unbelievably valuable tool we now have in our midst and time to run with it. So now let's go. Our challenge is on. And that kind of indirectly, leads to our next subject on the agenda, and that's Jared to talk about program cost recovery, fees, programs, and kind of a base framework on how we can approach some of our programs to come.
That's right. So we asked and they answered. So now it's time to make it happen, to move it from, theoretical to practical. So can everyone see my screen? Tonight, I'm going to introduce, a kind of a philosophy within the national park and recreation scene. It is the cost recovery philosophy. And this is something that can be tailored to our specific department and what best serves our community. So cost recovery is the degree to which operational costs are in reinvestment initiatives. Sorry, I got to move myself out of my way here. Are financially supported by user fees and other funding mechanisms. So what that means is we're a growing park district. We have a lot of capital projects going on. We have a lot of full steam ahead with our growth and development. We have 2 townships to expand into. So rather than divide resources further and kind of take away from some of those initiatives, by introducing cost recovery, we can not only expand those avenues, but also grow and develop our programming to match what the community wants, all at the same time. So kind of the general scheme of this is the general fund provides the facilities and the primary staff to run those facilities. So the tax base is providing the trails and the parks and the full-time and some part-time staff. And then, so it is our job to kind of breathe life into this park district like we asked what the community wants. So staff create these programs based on the public interest. So what's important is we have this document now, this report that we're going to be able to read, kind of use it as a playbook and expand straight into our existing parks and plan for the future. So when we are developing parks, we'll know kind of what people are wanting to have in their parks. So it's kind of like an additional master plan layer. So by collecting user fees from some of these programs, we're able to reinvest those fees back into our programs to further expand faster. And I'll explain that a little bit more in the coming slides. But just wanted to make sure we're all on the same page. So when I say primary staff, I'm mainly speaking about the full-time and regular part-time positions that are funded by the general fund. But as we expand our recreation opportunities, we're actually going to have the majority of our part-time staff funded through the non-reverting operating. So that is our support staff, and that's kind of how the camp counselors are funded right now. So the camps essentially pay for themselves. So it's just expanding on that logic and creating new job opportunities in the community and also filling those needs. So these positions are created to facilitate, oversee, and support the programs that are planned by our primary staff. So these will be the event staff, program instructors that are contracted. So we don't necessarily need to hire a seasonal or full-time yoga instructor. We could contract out for that position and just have that service provided to the community. So there's multiple ways to go about this, but the base thing is that we want to not increase our dependence on the general fund because there are competing interests in the town. There's other priorities, and this is going to help us create a more resilient programming department. So in the face of budget cuts or other setbacks, we'll be able to still provide these to the community because they'll kind of be self-funding themselves. So as we develop these programs, we're going to create a program plan. I've already kind of shared this with Mindy, but one of the components of that is to actually find what is the cost per program. So we have this equation up here, and we'll just kind of go through the integers. So F is all of the fixed costs, and the direct costs right now, as far as we're concerned, would be those support staff, equipment, rentals, supplies, whatever it takes to make that program happen. And we're not going to worry about the indirect costs right now, but as we get a community center, we're probably going to want to cover some of those operational costs in every single program. So we'll divide that indirect cost of utilities, maintenance, administrative costs in those future programs. Variable costs, an example is t-shirt orders. So if you have 1 to 20 people participating in a program, your shirts might be $3.99. But if you have 20 to 50, it might drop down to $2.99. So it's just a sliding scale cost as the demand of the program changes. And the last integer there is demand for program. That's how many people we can fit into the program. So after we run this equation, we do get the cost of our program. And I just wanted to share my logic behind demand on this equation. So there's two ways to look at demand. You can either look at the minimum amount of people that you're going to allow into the program to still have it happen. So say you open up to 50 people, but only 8 sign up. You can factor in costs for that price point. But I feel like we're in a good enough position and we have enough engagement that we can kind of plan for the best case scenario and just kind of assume more of those costs if we don't get the sign up. And then after the program runs, we'll reevaluate for the following year. So just a quick look at this slide. Demand is the maximum amount of participants in the program. And this is going to allow us to reduce the cost to our residents. To piggyback off that sentiment, I think for advertising purposes, we should adjust our fees to the nearest 25 cents. So as we look at this, basically the biggest thing to take away, say we're doing Pilates in the park, and we at least need to have 6 people in the class, but we can have up to 20. Our instructor contracted position costs $28 an hour, and we're going to have 2 one-hour sessions. So plugging in the equation, we're either going to come up with $9.30 per individual based on the minimum, or $2.80 based on the maximum. So as we adjust those to the nearest quarter, it's $9.25 or $2.75. So those really just create completely different stories in your mind as to the value of what you're getting. I think most people can agree to chuck in a couple bucks to go do something they enjoy. Whereas as you're getting into the double digits, it's more of a commitment and you're really going to need to like it. So I think we can just plan to kind of absorb as much cost as we can. So this is a more drawn out example of that. Spike ball is a new game that's growing in some demographics. So in this program, participants will learn will learn tournament rules. They'll form teams and be in a competitive round robin style. We're going to say this class is for ages 13 to 20. We'll have 3 events, 2 hours each, and we'll need at least 8 participants per class, but a max of 16. So factoring in the price of nets and that one part-time position to oversee the program, and then the maximum demand of the program, we're looking at about $9.58 per participant. Is everybody with me so far? Kind of just implementing that? Okay, because now we're going to really get in the weeds. Okay, so from this, we know how much the program costs. And now as a parks board, as a community, we determine what level of that cost we want to absorb. And so there's this community-driven pyramid method. And essentially, we're going to start from the bottom up. And something that is completely beneficial to the community, we want to just provide. So our parks, our trails, our special events, that's something that the community should be able to enjoy, no matter your demographic, your income. But as those interests become smaller and smaller, we're going to try to recover a little bit more of that cost. So as you can see, youth classes, athletics, swimming, those are all still really close to the bottom because they benefit our community as a whole. You know, if people are engaged in athletics, they're going to be more fit. Our healthcare costs are down. They're more connected socially. But as these events get more and more compacted, it really benefits less and less of the community, which is great. But we're going to adjust our price model depending on that. So using that, our cost recovery targets, you see at the bottom, 0%. We're not looking to recover any costs from providing these amenities. But as you work your way up the pyramid, that's the percentage at which we're going to try to price these programs to retain that cost. And now, as you look at some of those examples of things we already have, the camps are already structured to fund themselves. So we're already exceeding that 75%, cost recovery. And also I've spoke with Mike, and the golf course runs at about 125% cost. So they're trying to, retain a little bit so they can invest in their capital improvements. So as we move forward with new and existing programs, we kind of want to just structure our pricing model to match these percentages and create a more self-sustained, resilient program department. And so those two last slides were kind of information from a national, it's actually the city of Arlington, Texas. That's their model. But this slide is actually from the Pros Consulting, and it's the exact same information, just presented a little bit differently. So Pros also suggested the same kind of logic as we move forward with recovering our costs for these added services. So to go back to our example, we had that 958, as you see towards the bottom, as our program cost. And now as we add that 50% youth athletics subsidy, so that cost recovery, now it's about down to $479 per participant. So we'll advertise that at $475 per participant. So if you look over to the right, if we get a full sign up, that's going to be about $228 in revenue from user fees, and we're going to use about $231 from the non-reverting operating. So really, we're going to just about meet that benchmark of the 50-50 split. So now that program essentially cost us half as much, and we'll have that revenue to reinvest into the next program. So everybody with me so far? We're just going to go a little bit deeper. This year's 2021 budget, as you look from the general fund on the last line on that first little box, you'll see recreation, and we have $5,000. So we can decide to use a part of that as our seed money as we start out this philosophy. So say we want to do 2,500 for programs. So we'll know, Mindy and I, as we plan out this year's programs, we'll know we can subsidize about $2,500 worth of those fees on our side, and then try to recover the rest. So that'll help us kind of figure out what we're going to provide for the year. And as those revenues come in and we get towards quarter 3 and 4, we'll be able to know where we're at for investing in that next quarter and plan for that. So really it is going to be a snowball, and it's not really to amass a big non-reverting fund. It's really to invest that right back in to expand what we're able to operate. So with this framework, we're able to hire those part-time staff because our full-time staff will be developing the programs, and then the part-time staff orchestrate them. They make them happen. So besides being a sustainable program, we also want to be accessible. So we will allocate a portion of the budget every year, and we'll discuss those subsidy levels on a routine basis to make sure we're all in agreement of where we want to invest the most in our community, what seems appropriate. Honestly, I would really like to start up a scholarship donation program. I just think it would be fantastic if we could just get the generosity of the community and not even have to charge these rates. If we could just have a separate fund of support in the community to kind of, a donation line that says $50 for youth programs, and that's where we'll apply it at. So I'm building that within our budget lines and hope to roll that out soon. We'll advertise it on the internet and at each of our events. Mindy's also working on a robust sponsorship program. So I think it would be wonderful if we're able to say, this year's Nature Navigator is brought to you by, and so free of cost to our residents to provide that service. One more thing to kind of keep our programs, accessible to all of our community is to differentiate resident and non-resident pricing. So there is a portion of that fee where the amenity is already purchased by tax base. So as a non-resident comes in, we feel it's fair for them to pay a portion of that. And I've seen some of the percentages that other park districts use, and I've wanted to stay towards the bottom of that. So I would recommend we add 20% to non-resident pricing. So really what you're looking at on that 475 example, adding 95 cents round up, it's 575 instead of 475. And that extra 20% is going to be invested in our programs for the next time as well. So, and that scale can be adjusted if we find out that 30% of our programs are being used by non-residents. We can adjust that to 30% to kind of recover that capture that exact usage versus cost. So this is where we are right now. We're doing it very well. Zionsville excels in nature programming and our special events, but this is where we're trying to go. So we're trying to offer outdoor fitness, volunteer activities, outdoor water recreation, and indoor recreation. So this is kind of a strategy to incorporate all this at once successfully. And I think that is all I have right now. So if we have any questions, I know that was a lot of information quickly.
I have a quick question, Jared. How do you propose to collect fees? You're going to be taking cash, you're going to be taking checks, Venmo, credit cards? I mean, how is that going to work?
It has been quite the process, but we are initiating an online payment system for the dog park. So we're going to use that exact same software and payment system to migrate all of our existing programs and future programs online as well. So it's just coordinating those tech resources. It's just a little bit of work up front, but it's going to be worth it and safer for our employees and easier. I would like our department to go cashless if possible.
If people show up for an event, are they not going to be allowed to participate if they haven't signed up in advance, or is there going to be a mechanism to take people, as they walk in?
Yep, with this new online vendor, we are getting those little card swipes. So we will be able to take transactions in the field live. So if there is space, absolutely. I see pop-up events and things like that is absolutely the future.
One of your last
questions?
slides did, excuse me, touch on it, but I really think it's important for us to make sure that we're providing options for our low-income residents to participate in any program, whether that's through scholarships or donations or whatever. So it's something that I think that we all need to keep in mind, so that, you've got kids that want to participate in a camp, but their parent can't afford it, or someone that's elderly that is on a fixed income and needs to watch their budget, that they can still participate in everything that we're offering.
Absolutely. I completely agree. And that is actually one of the job description lines of the Director of Rec Services, is to explore those. And so it's in her job description. We got to get Mindy out there.
People here aren't used to paying to participate in events like that. What do you anticipate to be a ramp up period, till we get to the point where this is accepted as the standard operating procedure and not something new and different?
I think that's a great point, and I think it will be playing around with a mixture of both. Just like in the Nature Center, 230 programs in 2019, and 157 of them were free, somewhere around there. So people are used to that mix. They understand that some programs they have to pay for. So I guess it's just easing them into this new model and definitely providing opportunities that are free. And we don't want to take that away.
Yeah, communication will be key. I'm thinking of Noblesville and their professional photography, their professional photography policy that got a little feedback. So I think this makes perfect sense. Are we all agreed that, again, programming is going to move fast, recreational programming. So this is a great way, I think, to, a great framework to put it in, so that we do have, consistency. We can talk to people about how we are, pricing this, and make a little bit of sense as we go forward, and avoid some PR problems. Any problems? So we've talked about, having scholarships to be able to make sure it's available to all, all demographics. Anything else? Any other problems or issues you guys see? Okay. I don't think there's any, let's just go forward, use this as a framework, Jared. It does lead to, do we have fees that you wanted to get approved tonight, or is that next month, or for our existing recreational programs?
Yep, I have a few updates to this year, and it's not quite to this model. This is a little bit different. So I got one more presentation to share with you. That's not true. I have 2 more. But
This was discussed with the town council too, right? 'Cause I read a
yes,
wonderful article that you're in.
yes. So this is all of that information in more detail, so you guys can take an honest look at it. And I kind of just want to get the Parks Board blessing before I go back to the town council and kind of explain where we're coming at with this. So let me share this to you real quick. And I apologize for this format. I accidentally saved it with a design template that I didn't like, but here we are. So, okay. So, like I said, in 2019, 230 programs were offered, and 157 of which were free to the public. The current Parks and Rec program fee schedule was established in 2014, 2015, and kind of the philosophy behind that was just retain costs if the participant would get something, like a kit or a craft. So this is the existing fee schedule. And I just want to kind of look at the couple of items that are highlighted, the majority of which pertain to the Nature Center. So again, just what I'm kind of trying to incorporate here is that split between resident and non-resident. So as we look at next year's, you'll look at public schools, that is the first change, and we went from $2 to $3. And the reason we're doing that is a couple reasons. Number one, I wanted to standardize kind of what our youth organized price point is. So if you look, private schools are also $3 and scouts. So it kind of makes sense if a group is coming to the Nature Center, they should all be charged about the same rate. Now we did contact the schools and they do have a financial system in place, a fund to cover expenses if a student can't cover that fee. But currently at the $2 rate, if you'll notice, it says $50 minimum next to the program cost. So the majority of classes are actually hitting that $50 threshold because, they have 24 students, so that's only $48. So they're still paying just a little bit above that $2 mark normally as well. I also want to bring up that this line is almost not used anymore. So in speaking with Mindy, I've learned that the majority of teachers find it easier to not coordinate all that effort to get over to the Nature Center. So a lot of them, especially in COVID, are opting into that virtual field trip, which we did not adjust the price points to. So exact same $25, $45 fees. And that's just an easy way to get us into their classrooms and less of a headache and logistics. So that's kind of the rationale between that $1 increase on the resident school groups. I'm going to go back. So also in our, so for birthday parties, as we saw on that pyramid, those were highly specialized individual reward benefit, whatever you want to call it, at the top of the pyramid. So we're trying to get that 125% increase or retention of those fees. So with birthdays at the Nature Center, we've increased the fee by $25. And really one of the biggest driving factors of that for this first year is that the Nature Center is moving. So instead of just a birthday party occupying one room, they're going to occupy the entire Nature Center. So our entire staff will be tied up in that program rather than facilitating people that walk in the door during the birthday party. So it's just kind of paying for that exclusive use as well. If you look at our backyard explorers, we increased from 45 to 60. And that's not really based on updating prices. We're actually adding an additional day of camp. So instead of 4 days a week, it has gone to 5. The same with our day camp. We're increasing from $20 to $30. But again, we're going from 2 hours a day to 3. And this is based on experiences with these camps and kind of people asking for more. And the biologist boot camp and nature navigators, that's the only one we adjusted for inflation. So we did kind of go up $5 from 85 to 90. And that's just to recover a little bit of that staff and supply costs. So really, it's not so much changing fees to increase prices as the service has changed, the level of service with each of these programs. So we kind of just adjusted for that. So if we do implement these changes based on our 2019 numbers, pre-COVID, it's a little bit was more of the standard. We're looking at a difference of about $1,800. So it's not like we're increasing these fees and getting an extra $500,000 or anything like that. But what we are able to do, that $1,800 is going to provide, 180 hours of staff time that we can reinvest into the programs. So that's kind of the changes to the Nature Center. We can talk about those more if you'd like at the end of the presentation. The only other thing I wanted to talk about this year is previously we've offered, 2 opportunities outside of the Nature Center or the golf course, and that's the community gardens and the gazebo rental. So I left both of these the same, essentially. The community gardens, the exact same price point, but the gazebo, we're going to split into the half-day, full-day rental, just like our shelters that we're introducing. So it's just going to fit into that model of a 4-hour rental as opposed to the whole day. So this, as you can see, this list is a little bit longer than that previous 2 items, and that's because we're adding the reservable shelters, the recommendations for the memorial program, the opportunity for, unorganized or unprofessional sports teams to come in and reserve a field. I'll talk about special events using the trail, and then also park special event admission fees. So we'll just go down the list. That's shelter reservations is what I've introduced last year. It's kind of that half, those 2 reservable time periods. So our residential rate was $50 for each, or $100 for the day. Our dog park membership, we've discussed in previous meetings. It's $100 for the initial and $50 for subsequent dogs for residents. And now the Mulberry Fields is just something to introduce. Rather than have to form a contract with a team like we will with a lacrosse team, if somebody wants to come in and use our fields, they're free to do so. But if they actually want to reserve the space and make sure it's theirs, we will charge these small amounts to the team just to kind of retain some of those damages that might happen to the sod or the irrigation system and some of that upkeep. So if a youth program comes in and wants to use a field, it's going to be $5 for 4 hours. If they want the lights on, we're just going to double that. And we can revisit that after we update our lights into LED. I've actually learned that if you turn on the lights in the wrong sequence, you can be looking at hundreds of dollars in usage. So it's quite interesting. It's kind of a outdated system that we're going to look at and kind of update in the following years. This park special event admission fee is kind of a catch-all for all those programs we'll introduce. I just created a number that I thought we'd never even get close to. And as you saw from the previous presentation, those prices are around $4, $5 or less. We're not looking to do 75, but if John Bon Jovi shows up, we want to be prepared to offer that to the community. And also the special event trail use. So if a group comes in and wants to use the trail for an event, we fully support that, but there are some costs associated with that. I would personally like to have a sign at every entrance to the trail, letting people know of the event, kind of cut down on a little bit of that headache. And that requires maintenance resources to not only purchase a sign, but also place them at every entrance and then pick them up after the event. So just trying to recover some of those costs associated with those special events. And again, none of these.
Would that include the sort of running events that take in part on the rail trail?
That was kind of what I was thinking. And, if as a board, we don't support that, we can strike it. This is just kind of where my mind was. Definitely open to conversation on all of these. And the memorial donations, that was kind of just a benchmark of where we would price those items. So, all this at once kind of seems like, we're just trying to grab a lot of money. And that's definitely not the message we want to get out there. We want to show that we want to invest in our community and grow what we have. So I've been thinking about the dog park a lot and kind of putting out feelers and getting reception from the community. And, that $100 price tag is a little steep. for some. They're kind of shocked, like you said in the last presentation, about slowly introducing people to this new model. So I'm going to propose, if you guys approve, a $25 discount to registration during this year. Not only because of the difficulties of COVID, but just because we don't completely know what our operational costs will be for the dog park. We don't know how much it's going to cost to reseed every year, or how often we're going to have to replace equipment. So I think easing into the structure is kind of what I'd like to do. So if I have the board's blessing, I propose to town council to offer that $25 discount. So it would be 75 for single dogs residents, and then 95 for a single dog non-resident. And while we're talking about that, because we have such a limited number of registration applications we can take, I'd also like to limit our initial push out to just Zionsville residents for the dog park. Due to limited fobs, we're only going to be able to offer 200 at the start. And then later in the year, we'll be able to offer that last 100 positions. So I think during this initial invitation to the dog park, I think it should be Zionsville residents first. And then as we have vacancies, fill that into non-residents. So here's kind of the new fee side by side. And if we have any questions before I go on, happy to field them.
Jared, I've got a question. Good job on this. I like seeing it all on one page. Question is on the Mulberry Field rentals. Mm-hmm. In the past, we've talked about doing that. And if memory serves, I think we've declined to rent it to youth programs. So I don't know if this, maybe Roger, if you can field that, if we start renting these out to, I'm thinking of like a youth flag football program, what that looks like in terms of liability for that. But if we do that, if we as a board decide to do that, I'd be inclined to think we could charge more based on the cost of those youth programs. I think we might be able to charge. I'm just thinking of my daughters go to basketball tournaments at the Pacers Athletic Center, and we pay a lot for those winter sports. It's $6 a person to enter. So I'm inclined to say that we could charge more for those Mulberry Fields. But anyway, just want to throw that out, see if that starts a discussion. Or maybe it may be too premature to talk about that specifically.
I think the principle we've always looked at is it going to interfere with other general public use of the area, of the facility, of the trail, of the field?
Right.
The legal issues are ripe. How do we feel about that? But so the Mulberry Field, I don't have a good feel for, people flying kites in those fields that they wouldn't be able to fly if there was a flag football group in the field.
I think, park operations would be impacted a little, but, we have up to 6 fields out there. So until we're at the capacity of programming all 6, I think, we can be a little bit more generous with the impact.
That's my impression too. So I do agree with John. That did seem kind of light on the Mulberry Field rentals.
Especially if it costs $100 to turn on the lights.
Yeah, that was kind of staggering. So
there would be some sort of form they would sign that so we'd get we could get our liability protections in place through some sort of form, right?
Yep. The goal would be to migrate everything online and then just making sure we capture that. That long packet of dog park information, we had a waiver in there, and we were able to transpose that online. So they actually have to check and then do a electronic signature. And then, they're agreeing to those terms, and then they move on in the process. So the technology's there to do this either in person or online.
So what would you like from us? Oh, go ahead, Roger. You got a comment?
Well, I was just going to say it's just like we did over 10 years ago with our cycling team, where when they sign up, they sign the waiver online. That covers it. with the town, it's different in that, I mean, the town has additional protections against liability that a private enterprise doesn't have. So it's really not that big a deal dealing with the liability issues. I mean, they're there, but we have insurance and we have waivers when people sign up, and it's really pretty routine at this point.
So process question, Roger, you might have input on this, is what are we as a board required to approve or not in terms of program fees or pricing? What do you need from us? What are we required to do?
Well, I mean, I think given that this is a much more global concept than we've ever dealt with before. We've dealt with fees, to rent a gazebo at Lincoln Park. We've had, summer camps at the nature center, but to me, this looks like kind of a transition into a more comprehensive way of looking at recouping some expenses. And as Jared says, we always have to balance the fact that our constituents, the Zionsville taxpayers, have already paid for these facilities. I mean, people that have been around Zionsville for a long time have already paid for these facilities. So, we don't want to, we want to always be sensitive to not nickel and diming our taxpayers because they're already paying taxes. But I think Jared has done a nice job of and I think we'll need to make sure that we convey the message that that we're not trying to, just charge everybody for everything. We're trying to expand our programs, and to do that, we are feeling that it's appropriate for people who participate in certain programs to contribute a small portion of what it costs to put those on. So,
And
that's
we
the reaction.
Yep. And we do have the luxury right now that we don't have, things with a lot of cumulative upkeep. But the moment we do get a community center, this isn't going to just become, an option. It's going to become necessity. If you have a $6 million building, it's going to take $1 million a year to, keep up or something like that. So it's just, we have the luxury right now to kind of have these conversations, but I think implementing it now before we get to those larger facilities is important.
I think we can kind of ease into it. Again, we're looking at a lot of fees for a lot of different things here.
Yeah, and I don't want to have to approve if Jared decides to change the, one of these, just one of the Backyards Explorers price, that shouldn't have to come to the board. So, the framework is fine. I don't know, an annual look at the comprehensive system and pricing is fine. I mean, that's kind of what I've got in mind in terms of, process going forward. The council doesn't need anything. Do they need to approve any of this, or?
I would like just to hear from you guys that you're in support so I can reflect that on Tuesday because of the holiday. Because they are, the final, this is lumped into the ordinance with all other fee structures. So we were one of the few departments that did change their prices. So we were kind of singled out. So it's kind of communicating to them why this is happening.
Gotcha.
So you kind of need approval for us to go to the council.
I'm already going before the council again. I've been there twice now. And I'm going to present something very similar to what we saw tonight in that first presentation. So I was just kind of hoping, to be able to say that the Parks Board backs this. And we're only talking about 2021 right now. We're not talking about that larger scheme just yet.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. If anybody else have questions, or again, maybe we should just, say, okay, this is a great outlook for 2021, and these fees are fine with us for 2021, and let's revisit a process for the long term.
I think it's a great short-term solution and a great long-term solution. I really commend you, Jared. I think it's great. And, we haven't revisited these fees for 5 years. I think it's time to do that. And would it help you if we passed a resolution that you would have in your back pocket when you go before the board?
Yeah, if that's what that
council,
looks
I mean. Yeah. So if that's the case, I would move that we pass a resolution. Tim, is that appropriate to do that?
Yeah, that's appropriate. You want to raise those Mulberry Field rentals or not?
I would prefer not right now, just because the council's already got their packet. But
Okay.
happy to revisit that next year.
All right, then I would move that we pass a resolution supporting the fee structure that Jared has laid out, and that he's going to be presenting to the town council this week, Jared?
Next Tuesday.
Next Tuesday.
I second.
All right, so John, Stair has moved, Solowich has seconded a motion to approve the fees and the philosophy as well that we've been provided here by Jared. Are there any more questions or discussion?
I would that does include the 25% discount for the dog park, correct?
Yeah, that was the three things I wanted to get. So the fee schedule, the discount, and then, the support, the dog park registration for residents only for this first round.
Yeah, that's your discretion, the last one, but that's fine too. But
Okay.
But I think the motion, that Jill's question is, in terms of the motion, we've got fee schedules, and that included a dog park pricing discount for 2021. I think that is within the scope of the motion made by Member Stair.
I will, just to reiterate, I do think that if we do start advertising that we are open to reserving Mulberry Fields, I can foresee a 100 kids soccer camp going out there that limits residential use for those fields, which is what they were designed for. And it is going to, we're not going to be getting the income that we could be for that. So I like everything. I'm really happy you did this, Jared, but I like everything outside of those fees. But if as a board, we want to look at that, next year, that's fine too.
Absolutely. And I just, want to reiterate that we continue to want to offer free programs as well. These are just some of those programs that will have a cost, but we want to keep those ratios of free educational, free recreational opportunities as well.
Is Amanda briefed on this fee schedule? Does she know what's going on?
Yep. It's actually been before board twice now. So this is the third time, and they're going to kind of get the whole story. It was a townwide initiative to update these fee schedules. So that's kind of why we started looking at it prior to our report coming out. So that's why, it's not necessarily in those recovery rates that I just discussed. This is just kind of updating a little bit.
Okay, you might want to work with her on Q&A or backup statements. Again, it is kind of a sensitive issue in the press right now, so that may come about for us. All right, any more questions on the motion? If not, let's move to a vote on John Stair's motion to approve the fee schedule. Jill Pack.
Aye.
John Selovich.
Aye.
John Stair.
Aye.
John Wollenberg.
Aye.
And I also vote aye, so it's passed. Go for it. All right, anything else, Jared, before you go on to the Lair grant?
Nope, that's what's next. So.
All right, we're running late here, so.
This presentation is 4 slides, so here we go.
Okay.
All right, Lair grant. As you know, Let's go big. As you know, we've been working on the Eagle Creek section that runs along Starkey Park. It was identified about 6 to 7 years ago, I guess 8 now, that, there was a lot of bank erosion going on. So back in 2013, a study was conducted to kind of identify project sites and what actionable items we would do to kind of mitigate that and stabilize that bank. So those are our 4 project sites. The most recent completed was Site D, so that's already good to go. We fortified that bank, and it's helping us reduce a lot of sediment that's been going down the creek, down into the watershed, into our drinking water. So what I'm proposing is, this is at the advice of both the DNR and our consultant we've been working with, is now that we own Overly Warman, and it's been 8 years, that we take a look at that study again and kind of gather new data to identify if there's any other sites along this segment that need attention first, if we need to change our priorities, and also look at the Overly Warman shoreline and see if we need to address one of those first and what the impact is on that side now that we own both. I think it's important to be a good steward to our shorelines and protect those corridors. So to update the study, it's going to be about $46,000. And lucky for us, there is the DNR layer grant, which is an 80-20 match. So with staff time making up a portion of that 10% in kind, we're looking at about a $9,000 cash match. And like I said, what we're going to do is update that study area and kind of get construction documents, design documents for any sites that are identified and how we can mitigate those. So the application is in 2 days. So if we could act on this tonight, that'd be great. So yeah, it'll be that $9,000 cash match, some of staff time, and then monitoring the project and implementing in future years with future layer grants.
Could you go back to the map of the creek? Yeah, there, and maybe you or maybe Mindy knows. I don't know exactly how our first 2 grants. So Site D and Site C, I believe.
Yes.
So Site C was actually our first grant, and I'm not sure why it's red.
This was from the original presentation.
Okay, gotcha. Do you know how much our grant was, or how much each of those projects were at Site C and then 2 years later at Site D?
I would have to dig that up. I want to say it's north of 100,000, but with that match, that makes it a lot easier on us.
My recollection.
Yeah. No, we didn't. Oh, go ahead, Roger. Do you know what the quantum was of those projects?
It was like 125 to 150 on each one.
That was the total cost of the project that we took 10-20% of.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
So yeah, to second that, we are already invested in this effort. I believe a portion of C needs to be reconfigured, is what we discussed in December. So kind of updating the study will re-identify the portion that's not doing what it was supposed to.
Yeah, I think the red portion was mostly taken care of, but not the yellow. And there may be some, that the yellow is turned into a new red. But
yep.
Any questions from board members? So this makes sense to kind of take a step back and spend, for a $40,000 to $50,000 project that's going to cost us $9,000-$10,000. Makes sense to do this to me. So makes.
Yeah, you just, this is something we've been dealing with for 10 years. And it was really eye-opening to me when we first got the presentation regarding, just how creek banks work. And there's a lot of, for a long, years ago in the history of mankind, people tried to straighten creeks until they realized, until it was proven that that's just not possible. So, but there are things that can be done, and our previous superintendent pointed out at one point a couple of years ago that there was a portion of Eagle Creek that, like, it used to be 50 feet wide and suddenly it was 150 feet wide. So these things happen all the time, and while doing something about it is very specialized work, fortunately there are companies that deal with this, and FLR is a company we've been working with pretty consistently, and I want to hear more about why there's been a change in, I mean, if there's been a change in something in part of the work that's already been done. If there's an issue about work being redone, then that would be something that I'd want to hear a little bit more about. But, originally they came up with these different sections, and now we've done 2 of those. But we've always known that this was going to be a long-term project, and it was very technical. And fortunately, the Indiana Department of Natural Resources, administers this grant program, and they're involved in every step along the way. So that's another good thing, is that we have their support in dealing with these issues.
And this is a high priority for them because this is the drinking water for central Indiana. I mean, this is the main source going to Eagle Creek Reservoir, coming right through our park. So we're in a position to get a lot of this paid for.
And now that we own both sides, we could be their poster child.
Yeah. Is there a motion to approve submission of the grant as proposed by Jared? I will so move. Is there a second?
I'll second.
John Wallenberg seconds the motion to submit a Lair grant proposal as submitted by Jared to the board. Any other questions or discussion? No objection, we'll go to a roll call vote. Jill Pack.
Aye.
John Salovich.
Aye.
John Stair.
Aye.
John Wallenberg.
Aye.
I also vote aye, so the motion unanimously passes. All right, Jared, anything else on Lair?
That is it. We are required with our previous grant to monitor Site D for the next 3 years and write a report to the DNR. I'm working with Flatland Resource to get that first year report turned in. And then I'm hoping to read through the methods and the report and kind of try to do that on my own in the following years. So we'll have a year to kind of learn if I can do that before we commit to outsourcing all 3 years.
Okay, well, let's move on and quickly move through old business. It's mostly an update, I believe, but Tricia is here. And so is Overlay Warren Park. We want to get HIS contract done. It's not quite, I think I've signed it, but Roger's working on a insurance issue with HIS. Tricia, do you have any other developments recently that you want to report on either of those projects?
No, the contract is in HIS's hands. I did check with them. Roger, I don't know if you heard from him, but Kyle is actually on vacation this week, which is why we haven't heard back from him. So I'll touch base with him first thing on Monday when he gets back to see if we can't finalize that and get that done. Other than that, we're waiting on one more permit from DNR. They had an additional question asking for information just this week. So we'll quietly pester them to get that permit, and that'll be the last one that we need.
Is there any more? Are there any more answers we need to give to DNR on the grant that is funding a couple $100,000 of Overlay Warman that they were asking about some access issues?
Yes. So we responded and then they responded. And then Jared and I have been going back and forth over that second response. And we've come to a conclusion just yesterday. So we'll get a response back to them tomorrow, first thing tomorrow, to give them those answers. Mostly minor questions and details, pretty detailed, nothing big on the questions, I would say.
Yeah, was it handicapped access to benches that might be along the trails? So yeah, but I don't know. I think we had no benches on our designs.
We did not, no.
Any more questions about, or any more updates on Rail Trail South Extension Bridge? How's the bridge? Is that ready to roll?
So they're working on it feverishly, again, with me prodding a little more aggressively than I do with DNR. So the bridge design is what we're waiting on. The rest of the plans really are ready and waiting. So as soon as we get those bridge plans to roll into the other plans, that one will be ready to bid.
And then Roger reported to me today that not including the trailhead properties, the one final parcel that the landowner's trying to get mortgage releases so that they can, and a couple of other minor things done so that they can transfer that final parcel that would permit us to go forward with the maybe not with the trailhead yet, but at least with the bridge and the paving project, the trail expansion project, to make sure it stays on time, in sync, parallel with the Overly Warman project.
Right. Yep.
Any other questions on either of those two important projects? All right, on to the final old business, and that is a shelter reservation and tree bench donation policy. Jared Logston, what you need from us on that?
Just got some updates from Roger. Just wanted to put it before the board. It just incorporates a little bit of new language. We can start with the shelter. I didn't really notice too many changes besides language. There weren't really any other blaring questions. We just need to update our website to kind of incorporate, do you see 600 panels or just one?
We see one page.
Okay. Great. So yeah, it's what you saw in December with a couple of language updates from Roger. We do talk about fundraising and nonprofits, and it's pretty consistent with what we discuss in our existing policies concerning that in our parks. But I guess just official adoption, and then we'll implement that this year.
Okay, this is something this is a nice, this is in good shape. I don't remember it being so finished the last time we looked at it. Very nice.
It was close to that. So I think we approved this last month, subject to my review and
Okay.
Language issues. So unless anybody has any questions, I think that one's pretty good. I mean, again, it fits right in with the discussion about user fees. This is something that we've been doing for a long time before. We're just kind of updating some of the procedural stuff and the documentation. So to some degree, it's
All right, so we acknowledge review at this meeting of the final policy approved in our last meeting, subject to legal review, and legal review has been accomplished.
Yep.
How about the tree bench donation policy?
Tree bench, again, Roger had a couple notes. Donations cannot be accepted unless they go before the Parks Board. So Roger made that, he presented that as a statute. And, but we can, identify where these amenities could go. So I've identified some of the parks I feel could take on either a bench or a tree. And obviously it's always going to be at the discretion of the district and the Parks Board. So if there's no space, there's no space. but I just kind of updated that to incorporate some of those options.
So this will collect all the information and gather it so that it can be approved
Yes.
by the board, right? So, and it's clear that it's subject to our approval.
Yes. And again, this is something I want to migrate online. So if that's an option, and we'll present it monthly for any approvals.
All right.
And I do have 3 waiting in the pipe. So as soon as this is approved, we'll move forward on those next month.
All right. So this was also approved subject to Roger's approval. Do you remember, Roger?
Yeah, I think it was. And this one, I spent a little more, had a little more input into because, so I mean, I think Jared was trying to make it a little bit easier to approve certain things, like, you know, trees and benches are just so routine that, you know, you compare that to the statute that says that the park board, you know, that any donation to the parks has to be specifically approved. So it made me kind of think that okay, there might be some things like trees and benches that could be kind of pre-approved. You know, you could delegate, the board could delegate to Jared, to the superintendent, the ability to approve things where we just know it's so routine that, you know, he can handle that. So that those sorts of simple donation items don't have to come before the board every month. But then it also got me thinking that there are a couple of things we could add to this policy. For example, it's long been the policy of the park board that, you know, if somebody wanted to donate something really significant and then have it named after them or in memory of someone, then that's that's another thing that, you know, would probably need to come before the board. But you know, it's always good to put plant that seed again, so that people know that that's a possibility and that it's available to them. So, and then I got thinking about, you know, the more of this that we can make routine, so that we know things that can be approved just by Jared versus coming before the park board, that promotes efficiency and that. So it stimulated some more consideration and work, but I think it's all good and it's all leading to where we want to be in the future.
Great. Okay. I see that we asked them or acknowledged the possibility of larger donations. And then for now, the benches, you do have to come to us, Jared, but am I correct in that? Even a bench or a tree?
I think you could consider in the future, you know, giving Jared the authority to approve routine donations of trees and benches. You know, we've already kind of established a price for those. So I think that would be the next step, that you don't have to do tonight, but sometime soon, to consider giving Jared the ability to approve things like that. So Jared, why don't you send this updated version out to everybody and then we could approve it next month.
Well, do we need to approve it, or is it, you've looked at it and it's good to go?
It was approved kind of in concept, but you know, after I gave it some more thought and thought through some of these various issues, that's where I came up with a couple more ideas about how we might address this and do it in a way so that certain things could be kind of pre-approved. In other words, Jared would have the authority to accept certain things because they're so routine, like benches and trees. You know, we have it all spelled out, and so that's the part that is a little bit new that I think could be approved by the board either tonight or next month.
Since Jared has 3 already lined up, I would move that we allow him to accept donations of trees and benches going forward.
At the subject, for the fees set out in his document there, right, Bill?
Exactly. For the fees and the locations he's identified.
I would second that.
Questions? Jared?
No, that
Comment?
sounds great. That sounds great. I think I received about all 3 calls within my first 2 weeks. So they've been waiting patiently.
Okay. So any other questions? If not, let's vote on Jill's motion. All right, Jill Pack, yay or nay?
Aye.
John Salovich,
Aye.
John Stair,
Aye.
John Wallenberg.
Aye.
Okay, I also vote aye, so you're approved to accept the benches and trees. And I think you're fine. Again, feel free to talk to Roger if you need to on the rest of the policy. If there's no other issues, then you could go to. I think we've approved this, folks. Just decide with Roger what you need. But we know where you're going with the overall policy. Is that helpful? All right, sorry. Yeah, it is getting late. All right, any other board-related items?
There is one thing, and I know we're going along and I hate to extend it, but the last time, hidden in the old business, we discussed the Heritage Trail Phase 2 project and getting ready to put that out for bids. There's a lot of water that's sitting in what is going to become the dog park, especially on the south end of the park. And I don't know if we're going to have to mitigate that somehow. Anytime it rains, you got a lot of puddles in there. So I don't know if that's something we should maybe add to the bidding process for the new playground and the new sidewalks and all that, or if we can add that at this point. But I do think it's something we're going to have to deal with down the road.
That's a great point. Dave and I have actually had those conversations. Dave brought it up. The majority of that southern side is covered in ice right now, which is also water. We spoke with Public Works, and that area, that basin, is actually designed for that purpose, to be the catch-all, the drain spot. So it's just a really unfortunate location of where our dog park is. So we don't really want to change the grading of all that because it's calculated for how it is to facilitate the park. What we can do is plant some of those native grasses similar to what's outside of the fence inside of that location. And I think that's kind of our best bet because one, it's going to add enrichment to the dogs. Dogs love walking through long grass for whatever reason. Hopefully they're going to be able to get established and be resilient enough to survive, all the urine and such. But also what we're doing is we're going to actually only open up half the dog park in the winter. So we're going to have a winter section like most park districts do. So that northern side where the drainage is good, it's pretty dry. We're planning to just open that when we do open. So, and Dave, if you have anything else you want to add, I see you here. Or Tricia.
Yeah, so I met with Michael Susong and Bobby and part of the town, Public Works. And what we kind of are doing right now is taking a look at the SSDs or subsurface drains that were incorporated into the existing east side of the park. What we're going to do is locate those, have those scoped to see if heavy equipment over time or mowing or whatever has crushed those and rendered them kind of useless. If that's the case, we'd be looking to try to replace those. But one of the suggestions from the civil engineer was to potentially add additional 6-inch corrugated to the system that's in there currently, because the land use that we're proposing currently is wholly different than what it was when it was simply a butterfly field, right? So the amount of people, the fact that we don't have the same kind of turf in there, there's a lot of things going on with that. It may get to a point, and that would be up to Jared and the board on, it may get to a point where we do need professional help to go through and do this trenching, grading, and adding different 6-inch with stone. I mean, it's something that we can't do on our own from a maintenance standpoint and a time standpoint and equipment standpoint. So that could get to that point. But John, to your point, it is definitely something that is on the radar, and that we're working with our local professionals. And from that point, we'll make a decision on where that needs to go. And then Jared will know that information, and we can talk about this hopefully a little bit more informed next month or next park meeting. Does that sound all right?
Yeah, I'm mollified to know that you are aware of that and working on that, and I appreciate that. So thank you. Thank you for speaking to it.
Perfect.
I don't remember that basin going out that far. I can check the plans though. I'm sure Michael probably had a copy of the plans with him too. But yeah, I'll just wait for you guys, to kind of figure out how you want to address it. But that is something, if you do want to do an additional drainage under drain in there that we could add to this contract. It is going to be ready to bid in the next, I would say a week, but probably 2 weeks, because I'll need to, get Jared to review everything. And I don't know, Roger, if we need any kind of board approval before we send it out to bid, or if we want to wait, a couple weeks to kind of figure this part out, to figure if we want to add it to the plans.
So typically, when the plans are ready, then the board would review the plans and approve the plans before they go out to bid.
Okay. Then I will send PDFs to Jared and let him distribute everything to you guys to see it'll probably be a link because the files are big for plans and specs.
Good.
Yeah, I don't know if we need to see the specs, Trish, but yeah, whatever.
You don't want to read 500 pages worth of specifications. I can send the plans. I can send it a PDF.
All right, great.
I want to say that my natives are getting restless. Single dad here. So if you guys got to continue, I think I need to drop off because I got to take care of some stuff. I apologize.
All right, we still have a quorum. We're all right. And all that's left is claims. Any questions on claims?
Not everyone. I'm sorry.
Is there a motion to approve claims if there are no questions about claims?
I'll make a motion to approve the claims.
Is there a second to John Stayer's motion?
Second.
John Wallenberg seconded the motion to approve claims. Let's do a roll call vote. If there are no other questions, I'll vote aye. Jill Pack.
Aye.
John Stayer.
Aye.
And John Wallenberg.
Aye.
The motion passes 4 to nothing, which is what we need is 4. That's our quorum. All right. Is there a motion to adjourn? I so move. John Wallenberg seconds. All in favor, raise your hand. All 4 present members have approved, and some other people who aren't members I saw raising their hands. That was naughty, Dave. Okay. Thanks everybody. Thanks Jared. Thanks team. Great job. So thanks for hanging in there.
Thanks.
Talk to you next